It's Your Call is proud to introduce this special series dedicated to issues facing women in 2011 and beyond. Gender equality, leadership, violence against women, and health are just a few of the topics we discuss in honor of Women's History Month when we put the focus on women, and it all begins right now. Are you or someone you know being abused? Do you want to escape a threatening relationship but don't know how? Need advice on how to get what you deserve when ending a marriage? Then stay with us for this special edition of It's Your Call, where our Focus on Women series looks at women as victims. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our special series. I'm Lynn Doyle. All month long, we've been talking about issues of particular concern to women, like equal pay for equal work, becoming a leader in your community or workplace, and health and mental well-being. And I have to tell you that the response to these shows has been amazing. Well, today we talk about probably the most important issue of all, about women and the violence that they face every day and the fear that many women have when wanting to end a relationship. I want you to take a look at some of these disturbing numbers. Every 9 seconds in the U.S., a woman is assaulted or beaten. Around the world, at least 1 in every 3 women has said she's been beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused during her lifetime, and most often the abuser is a member of her own family. And domestic violence is the leading cause of injury to women, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. More startling statistics. 33% of all women who are murdered are killed by an intimate partner, and women make up about 85% of the victims of non-lethal domestic violence. In all, women are victims of intimate partner violence at a rate of about 5 times that of men. Domestic violence is the most prominent among women who are ages 16 to 24. And here are some final numbers for you to give thought to. Black women and men suffer from the highest rate of domestic violence. Black females experience domestic violence at a rate 35% higher than that of white females and at about 22 times the rate of women of other races. Poor women experience significantly more domestic violence than higher income women, and for both men and women, it's divorced or separated persons who were subjected to the highest rates of intimate partner victimization. Now, I don't know about you, but in my opinion, these numbers must absolutely change, and part of the change must come from women themselves. We must empower ourselves and our children to be free from abuse, neglect, or financial servitude. And here on It's Your Call, we're going to give you the tools to do just that. We have put together a great panel of experts for you to get this advice from. The first one is Mindy Elkhart. She is an attorney and the president of New Hope Divorce Mediation. Also with us is Azucena Ugarte, who is the former Director of Education and Training for Women Against Abuse. She is currently a volunteer with that organization. And rounding out our panel is Sheena Bediako, who is a former Philadelphia Eagles cheerleader who is now an attorney with her own law firm, the law firm of Sheena A. Bediako. Women, thank you so much for being with us. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you.
I don't know, do you all agree with me that this is probably one of the most important things facing women today, this victimization?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the numbers that you gave were so important and so outraging. It's like, what can we do to stop this?
And that's exactly how I felt. When I looked at the numbers and I was actually putting them together for the script, I was saying, come on, we have to do something to change this in America. This is America. Women should be free from this kind of abuse and this kind of violence that's directed at them.
Yeah, it is frightening.
I think a lot of times, you know, all of us have witnessed girlfriends or colleagues being in relationships that we felt were like just unsettling, like it just didn't resonate well. And you're saying to yourself, why would you still remain in this relationship? And you know, a lot of times people feel like they need to save someone else, and it's not your job to fix someone else. You need to intervene on your own behalf, because you're not here to be doing someone else's work. You're here to be the most productive person you can be for yourself, your family, and for others in your community.
Sheena, what an interesting observation, because so many times women are the caretakers, and even when they are being harmed or injured in a relationship, they somehow still feel like it's their fault. They're afraid to make a change because they want to fix things or they want to take care of the person who's actually doing the abuse.
And they tend to believe that the next thing that they do is going to fix it, and they tend to keep repeating the same pattern and going from one relationship to the next and just creating the same thing with a different person and a different face.
All right, so what we have to do first is give people some warning signs. I want you to look within yourself and say, am I in a pattern of abuse? Am I the person who continually finds the wrong kind of partner to be involved with? So what kind of guidelines would you say to a woman who's watching this show to say, is this me? Am I a victim?
I would say a couple of things about that. One of the things is we're pretty focused on physical violence sometimes, and it's like, okay, but my partner doesn't abuse me because my partner doesn't hit me. But actually abuse is more just than physical violence. It could be emotional abuse, it could be economical abuse, other ways that the person is trying to control you. And I think that's the thing that we have to remember, that domestic violence is about power and control. And even though there are some warning signs, like for example, if your partner very jealous, is your partner always asking where you're going, with whom? Okay. Is your partner accusing you of things that you don't do? Are you always making excuses for your partner? Okay. Those are warning signs that that relationship is not healthy for you, that the partner is like trying to gain control over you.
I find that really interesting that you say it's not necessarily physical abuse that requires it to be domestic violence. In fact, sometimes people are confused about what domestic violence is. If you have not been physically injured, will the police, for example, consider that domestic violence?
Well, what's important is to actually kind of do your best to keep two separate logs. One log would be actual dates and times of when incidents happen, and another log would be perhaps your take on how you are feeling during that particular time. And as you compile a list of these things, then you'll have more ammunition to present other than it being a one-time occurrence where there was an argument, a disagreement. It's important to have things documented, and it's also important just to be true to yourself. You know when something doesn't feel right. You know when you're being talked to poorly. And again, it's all about regaining your own control and being as forward in your actions and saying you're not going to tolerate these things. Whatever toxic spews this other person wants to send to you, you're just not going to be participating.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that many times it's easier said than done? Because it's
Sure.
one thing to say, I'm not going to tolerate this, but then actually standing up to someone who is threatening you or intimidating you or physically harming you, that's a whole nother story.
Can I say something about that? Like I mentioned some of the warning signs, but the truth is, a lot of abusive partners are great partners at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They love you, they care about you, they promise everything, they treat you like a queen, they're the Prince Charming. You fall for that.
Right.
You fall
and
in
that's
love.
what you remember, right? When
Exactly.
the going gets rough, you start thinking about how wonderful he was at the beginning, and you keep thinking, I can make him back to that person.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, by the time I get them, I always hear that, and I see it in a more watered down version. Now, when people enter mediation, they both have to come together and they sign off on a document that they're not going to treat each other like that in the room. And I have to hold up that document sometimes because I see that pattern beginning, but at least I have something that prevents them continuing to go down that path.
I want to talk about that for just a minute if we can, because you specialize in mediating so that divorce doesn't have to be incredibly painful or difficult. But in the cases where domestic violence is concerned, do you usually find those people at a mediation table, or is there any hope for mediation there?
There are certain situations which are not mediation appropriate, and physical abuse is certainly one of them. Now, I have seen some emotional cases. I think that it depends on how serious or significant it is, but there needs to be a balance of power, which I work to equalize the parties in my room. But if they walk out the door and one party is frightened and threatened by the other, then mediation won't work.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I would like to say that something that we want to educate people about is that there is a difference between just a bad relationship and an abusive relationship. In a bad relationship, you can try to fix it together through mediation, or you break up.
Right.
In an abusive relationship, it's going to be really hard to mediate because you don't feel safe. And when you try to break up, it's not going to be that easy.
That's a great point, that a bad relationship isn't necessarily an abusive relationship, but an abusive relationship is always a bad one. On that note, I do have to take a break. When we come back, we're